Welcome back to Print Fail Friday, episode 7, where failure is always an option. Let's see some of these fails. We're gonna start off today with an Ender 3 air pocket underneath ? Heated bed at 60°C. I feel like every one of us that have been in this industry have had this problem at least once and wondered what the actual sin is going on here. Now, if you have a PEI spring steel sheet or a PEI sticker on your build plate, it could be that air has gotten underneath that PEI. We actually had it happen on our TAS 6 now 3 times total, and eventually just let it get too bad, you peel it off, put a new one on. But what is actually happening here is bed adhesion. They either have some sort of oil, or the bed is not level, and considering it's all on the right side, the bed may not be level here. And effectively, you're either, one, having some peel forces involved, maybe the PLA is getting really cold for whatever reason, or it didn't really stick in the first place and you didn't notice it until the next couple of layers ended up making a very tight mesh, keeping the air trapped underneath there. This one can be solved a couple of ways, 2 different ways on an Ender style printer. 1, look at re-leveling your bed, make sure it's nice and level, and then 2, clean off that build plate. I know Creality says that the carbon silicone BS is going to get damaged by alcohol, but it really is the best way to clean your beds. The isopropyl alcohol, 90% or higher. Go ahead and wipe the bed down with that. If you want, you can use a soap that strips oil away. Dawn is a favorite of ours. And then give it another shot. You also might be running a little too fast on that first layer, but we can see that they're definitely on a next layer. I don't know if this is layer 1 or layer 2, I don't know, but they've definitely started another layer and noticed, hey, there's a big bubble. Interestingly though, we can see that the brim of the part, remember, brim attaches to your hat, skirt flows around you, this is attached to the part, so it is a brim. It looks like the brim is pretty darn clean. And with that in mind, I would lean more toward contamination on the bed than I would something else. Although, they could have the brim speed turned way down, which could also translate. So, a couple of different varying reasons, but I would start with making sure that bed is level, making sure that bed is clean, giving that print another shot, and if you are feeling a little spicy and don't mind it taking a hair bit longer, slow down that first layer, make sure she lays down nice and even. But interestingly, the fact they're saying that the heated bed is at 60°C does not really help us out all that much. Knowing the material, this is probably PLA, it's an Ender, it's probably PLA, but also knowing the extrusion temperature. If you extrude too cold, PLA will peel. If you extrude too hot, it can burn. But it looks like extrusion temperature-wise, we're right where we need to be. This one can plague you for a little bit, definitely a trap for young gamers, but real simple, clean that bed, re-level it, get her printing one more time, and you've got this in the bag. Microswiss help. Details and comments. Let's take a look at this. I will save you guys. The audio in this is just the fan, so we're gonna go ahead and mute that. What I'm seeing is filament not sticking. Yep, we definitely have a case of filament not sticking. I don't think this is the fault of Microswiss. This to me looks like you're a little bit too far from the bed. And the reason that I'm saying this is if we look here, there's a fair bit of gap. And what I'm also noticing is that it starts really far, but it looks like toward the backside of that bed, it gets a lot closer. So a bed that's unlevel with the front side being a little bit too far away from the nozzle can result no issues in the way this filament is curling. I think if you bring the nozzle a little bit closer to the bed, it doesn't have to be a ton, that this can be done. The commenter claims that they've printed a couple of parts with no issues and then this started. I'm going to point something out here. It's still a manually leveled build plate. If you are a little bit rough on your printers, as a lot of people are, when you're taking off parts, that can jog those wheels ever so slightly, especially if you're adding pressure from like a scraper or you're pulling up, that can adjust your bed leveling. When you set a bed level on a printer, it's not going to stay like that forever. That's why we highly recommend that you utilize a system like Prusa or a TH3D Easy ABL, which will auto bed level every single time. That way, you don't have to deal with this. You set the bed at a very specific height with either some silicone spacers, some nylon spacers, whatever it might be. You set the bed with some spacers, and then you let the probe do all of the work. My guess here is that they either used a scraper and in pushing down, some of the wheels spun a little bit, or when they went to pull the benchy off the plate, the wheel spun a little bit there as well. More likely when they pressed down, because that would allow the wheel to spin up a little bit, basically making the bed a little bit tighter than it should, taking the nozzle a little far away from the bed. Somebody call Freddie Mercury, because this girl, she's got herself a fat bottom, and that means the rocket world is going to go round. The fact that I even went that far still surprises the hell out of me, but hey, we're here, let's go with it. This is an elephant's foot. Very, very easy to look at and understand. That is an elephant's foot. But we are also seeing some layers sticking out, which also points at over-extrusion. That over-extrusion can also cause an elephant's foot. It certainly exacerbates an elephant's foot. So let's talk about an elephant's foot. I'm going to put a picture of an elephant's foot right here so you can get an idea of why it's called an elephant's foot. But basically, it is what happens when the first couple of layers are wider because they're squished. So what's likely happened here is that their first layer is a little bit too close, and the second layer, because the first layer is a little bit too close, is also a little bit too close, and eventually it kind of evens itself out. If you are over extruding and your bed is set perfectly level, you're going to have an elephant's foot because you're putting out more material than the machine is designed to put out. Therefore, the print is going to be a little bit off. So how do you set steps per millimeter? We actually went over this in a previous video where I worked on an Ender 3 Pro. I call it Ender 3 Max for like 3/4 of the video because I did not know, and it's what I was told, but it's an Ender 3 Pro. We'll card to the video right there, where I go through and actually do it. But the right way to do this is you take a ruler, you mark out 100 millimeters. You tell the printer to extrude 100 millimeters. Make sure the printer is pre-warmed and all of that, because otherwise it's not going to work. And then you see, where does that line land? If the line lands inside of your extruder, you're over extruding. Turn it down. If the line is a little bit far away from the edge of that extruder, hi, you're under extruding. Add some to it. And that's all done inside your steps per millimeter. There are handy calculators all online and ways to do it a little bit more mathematically. Me, in that video, I said, okay, we're over extruding. Let's turn it down a lot and let's make sure that it's not a big jump. It ended up only being like 4.2 steps per millimeter, but that matters, right? It was 144.2 stock and I changed it to 140. That's like a 2% margin, and you will notice that in your prints. Now, you could go through and adjust your flow rate for every print, but me, I'm all about making sure those steps per millimeter are perfect. To me, that's what matters more. Ultimately, if you can put in any filament that is the same diameter and be able to run it well and not have to adjust your flow rate every time, I think that you've got a bit of a more accurate winner in my book. But yeah, if you want to do it the non-scientific way, measure out 100 millimeters, send it through, make an adjustment, make sure you save the settings, try it again and again and again, and eventually you'll get it right. Now remember, there are lines of either black marker, black pen, I use a Sharpie just because it's easier, on that filament. So don't print anything that you really want to look pretty, because that black marker is likely going to show up in the next couple of prints. It happens. But you can ensure that you don't get an elephant's foot from over extruding. Now, unfortunately, these photos aren't the highest quality. And but when I say highest quality, I mean like best lighting. And it's difficult to see that top layer, but it does look like we've got some shearing from the nozzle, and that still tells me potentially over extruding. It looks like she might be a little bit hard right at the top as well, but looking at the rest of it, it might be over extruding, but you know, that could be Z-wobble. I would look at tightening up your V-wheels as well on this one, just to kind of work that one out. I noticed on that Ender 3 Pro that the V-wheels on the Z-axis were loose, the V-wheels on the X-axis, the V-wheels everywhere were loose. That's why I don't like V-wheels. They need constant adjustment, and if you over-tighten them, they just wear out sooner, and if they're too loose, it doesn't work. Bearings are one freaking setting. You never have to adjust them. You just have to oil them every now and then. I digress. But this could also be crappy filament. We used the GST 3D in that last video that came with the printer, and I noticed that it was way out of spec. It was oval. But I didn't want to get into a rant in that video all about that filament, but that filament is not round. It's cheap, like $8 a kilo cheap, but it's also not round. Spend some money from good, reputable manufacturers, whether that's Greengate 3D, Printed Solid Jesse PLA, or now Jesse PETG, Atomic Filament, or even Prusament if you're not based in the United States. There are lots of options out there, and I'm a little bit worried that this may not be the highest quality materials. Let's take a look at this one as well. Man, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure if it's over extruding anymore, because this looks really clean, but we do see a little bit of wiggle. It's definitely got a first layer issue, and I'm thinking that might contribute to some of the issues that we're seeing, but it might be crappy filament or some slop and some axes, because it's not a ton of movement. I don't know. I think I would check my V-wheels first. It is an Ender. We can see the Creality Ender logo there. Let's see if we've got some things from... Yep, okay, it is. It's an Ender 3 with a newer 32-bit board. Using the included PLA filament. There you go. Get rid of that crappy filament. Try something different. Using Cura 4.11 with default Ender 3 profile. Standard quality, 0.2 millimeters, 200C. On the nozzle, 50C on the bed. They assembled it last night, tightened all the frame and belts, leveled the bed using the G-code bed leveling file. That's fine. And a piece of paper seemed to be level afterwards. You might still be a little close. I also calibrated the E-steps, though it looks almost identical to the cube I printed before it. I would like to know where you started and where you ended up if the printer was over extruding. I'm getting ridges in the layers and a wide bottom layer or two. I tried Googling it, but I'm not sure what the correct terms are used to diagnose these problems yet, though I imagine a lot of people would have had them, so I was hoping for some help. That stock filament that comes with Creality printers is hot garbage. Just literally get that into a trash can as quickly as you can. Get a good quality material. And a lot of people are just going to buy like Overture or something like that from Amazon. Overture is not bad, but it's not amazing. I much prefer, if you're in the States, get a Made in America brand, or if you don't mind paying the shipping costs, get in some Prusament, because you want to remove that variable, and that variable is a very high one. I'm leaning more toward crappy filament right now than I am over extruding, but because they did tune their steps per millimeter, I'm a little worried about that one as well. Creality printers from the factory are generally decently well tuned for their steps per millimeter. I mean, let's be real. It's effectively the best-selling consumer-grade 3D printer on the market, the Ender 3. As much as I'd love it to be Prusa, they're Ender 3s. Or the Ender line, I guess I should say, because good lord, there's like 15 different iterations of the Ender 3. However, that sample filament is trash. But I do believe that Creality would have worked out any kinks in their steps per millimeter by now. This could be that you're too close and it's just creating an elephant's foot, or you could be over extruding. I'm going to lead more toward you're a little bit too close to the bed. Although I see the skirt line back there and it looks okay. It's just blurry. I'd love to see some more photos on this one, but I definitely do not want you using that filament anymore. Do not use filament that comes with your printers unless you're paying a lot of money for your printer. So like the filament that comes with a Prusa printer, it's pretty darn good filament. It's not actually Prusament on the MK3S. On the Mini, they're little samples of Prusament, but on the MK3S, it's not actually Prusament. It's still good filament, but it is way better than something that comes with a Creality printer. So ditch that crappy filament. Try it again. If you're still getting those elephant's foot issues on the first couple of layers, go ahead and pull the print head a little bit away from the bed. I think that might solve your problem. I'm guessing that everything else here is likely related to bad filament, but adjusting those steps per millimeter might have done you a little bit dirty as well. Is it under extrusion or change nozzle, extruder motor, level, tram the bed, new filament? This keeps happening. Settings in comments. You are too far away from your bed. Yeah, you're too far away from the bed. And I commented this. I said you are too far away from the bed, bring it closer. The user said, not the issue, as every layer looks like each line is far apart. I thought so too initially, so re-leveled or trammed the bed was the first thing I did. You can re-level and tram the bed as many times as you want. If you still do it wrong, it's still too far away. This is too far away, and I'm gonna tell you why I know this. You see how your perimeters aren't touching, and you see how they're not touching the same all the way around? If they weren't touching a lot on one side and a little bit on the other, you've got some axis slop. And you see how you're not accurately getting your lines to touch except at the edges? It's because you're too far from your bed. You can be slightly too far and it still stick down just fine. It's just not gonna look all that pretty. It looks like there's some glue or adhesion promoter here that is absolutely going to adjust how things work here. And that adhesion promoter can really cause some problems here. We're seeing that it gets a little bit better as the bed goes back. So you could have a bit of a warped bed. And we've got, okay, yeah, we've got a part there. It's the same issue. Your bed's not, it's not close enough. It can be level all damn day. This is not a level problem. I mean, although I'm only looking at vertical photos. The other issue that we have is the lighting is not great, so it's really difficult to see. But this is classic. It's too far from the bed. And because there is some sort of shmoo on there, be it glue, be it something else, it is affecting the adhesion properties of the bed. So parts are sticking when they shouldn't. The user doesn't think I'm right. That's okay. They're more than happy to have their own opinion on this. But I've been in this industry for a long time. Parts don't peel up on their own. This is an issue of your print being too far from the bed. Now, it could be a gross under-extruding issue, but because it is consistent, I doubt that it is. I don't think that somebody would change their steps per millimeter this drastically and say this looks fine. And we can see a piece of plastic that's going all the way through the print. I assume that's a skirt or something like that around the print, or a purge line, something along those lines that didn't stick either, and the printer just printed over it. I think there's an adhesion promoter on the bed that's kind of giving them a bit of an unfair advantage here, and a bit of a red herring with what the problem actually is. Yeah, we can see there's a purge line skirt thing going around the print here, and that's not sticking either. You are not close enough to your bed. And that is my final answer. Catastrophic failure on otherwise functioning Ender 3 Pro. See comment. I am more interested in these photos right now because, good lord, we've got an upset boy here. This is, I'm going to applaud you because that is a fail. Ooh, and good photos too. Nice high-res images. We definitely see some shifts from right to left, maybe some front to back. Yep, some front to back, and also back to front. we have a lot of shifts. Also, bonus points for the googly eyes. I'm going to give you a thumbs up for that. And I hope that you will give this video a like, because, come on, googly eyes are pretty awesome. Just like my segue to our sponsor, Victoria. She's not here. Let me go fix that. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first official sponsor, Victoria. Victoria is our shop cat. She's lovely and she wants to leave my hands, but no, you are lovely and you're going to stay here for the whole sponsor segue. Victoria is our shop cat. She's been with us for about 5 years now. She actually walked into our shop and, well, never left. But Victoria's going to sponsor this video, and if you want to help get Victoria all the love and affection that she deserves, love and affection, you can support us at patreon.com/3D Musketeers, where some tiers do include a sticker pack, which does have Victoria stickers in it, because, you know, we use the cat for branding because we can. But this is our director of HR and our director of marketing. If you don't believe me, go look at our website. She's got important cat things to go and do, and I did wake her up from her mid-afternoon nap, so we're gonna get back to the video. As we look, we can see some burn marks. God, this is rough. Like, this is the definition of a catastrophic failure. But I do commend them for the photos. These are actually really, really good photos. So we see overall view, layers are obviously not all aligned with ones below them. Close-up of the center of the print. The nozzle plunged into plastic wire housing in the back right corner of the build plate and became embedded. We got a creature from the White Lagoon, I guess. I don't know. We got a bit of a creature here going on, and this is all layer shift issues. Why it occurred, I'm not exactly certain. Most likely, and I would guess that it started right around that little stain there. My guess here is that either we started to see some peeling, because we can see that there might have been some peeling, or some layers that had some extra material on them. If you're over extruding, this could be a problem, where your nozzle is picking up little bits of excess filament. That can happen, and those can easily cause a problem. So don't, yeah, make sure your steps per millimeter are set. And that's actually a pretty good, consistent thing with this video. It's all about extrusion and steps per millimeter. Anyways, this is just a catastrophic failure, and let's see what they say. Found a screw jam between one of the Z-axis rollers and the 80/20 side piece it slides on. This was stopping the printer from rising above a certain Z height, and I imagine where a lot of this failure comes from. I'm not sure, however, where this M4x10 screw came from. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would have never come to that conclusion, because having random M4x10 screws on your Z-axis does not sound like something that I would have. But yeah, that's absolutely going to be what happened here. The Z-axis got jammed, it wasn't able to move, and the printer just started skipping steps, because the printer doesn't know any better. This is why I actually really like the Mark III's, because it does have crash detection. Any printer with sensorless homing, Ender 3s do not have it, but any printer with sensorless homing is able to also detect crashes, because the stepper motor can detect a spike in amperage. When you get that amperage spike, it's basically saying, hey, I hit something and I tried to go through it, and that caused my amperage to spike. That's how sensorless homing works. They basically look for when the motor current that is being requested from the driver goes up. And that's what says, oh, hey, nope, we found the home. We found home. We found home. There's no home. There's no place like G28. Am I right?
There's no place like
G28.
Where the M4x10 screw came from, I ain't got a dang clue. Although I do agree here, all you need now is a good marinara sauce. I'm glad that they found that screw, because if that screw got jammed in there and then somehow thrown off onto the floor, you might not have questioned an M4x10 on your floor. I generally don't, because I have tons of hardware, and I also have a cat. Like, literally, there's M5 and M3 bolts sitting on my desk. So it's not uncommon. This is a first for me. It's not a first for me. It could be a first for you. There you go. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of seconds to think about what went wrong here. I want you to comment down below with what you think went wrong. Okay. If you said the filament didn't get into the Bowden tube and was basically forced out and around the Z-axis lead screw, you are correct. It's one of the things I detest about Mark 8 extruders. And at least this is the all-metal variant of the Mark 8 extruder, but it's something that I detest. It is very difficult, and when I say very difficult, it is not easy, to get the filament into the hole that it needs to get into, because it is a difficult hole to see. And if you miss it, you're gonna end up with filament that happens like this. Now, I'm not certain if this happened during a print. Maybe there was a filament break in the Bowden tube and it just kind of forced itself out and around, or they were trying to extrude a bunch of filament and didn't notice that it was not coming through their hot end. I think they tried to extrude a bunch of filament here and it did not come through their hot end because the extruder and the lead screw are hidden by the upright, the 2040 piece of aluminum extrusion upright that is used on the Ender 3s. And this does not appear to be wider than 40 millimeters. They're probably like, what the hell? It's not extruding. And then they look at the extruder and they're like, oh shit, there's your problem.
Here's your sign.
And I would agree with them. You got to take a picture and put this one on Reddit. They got 1,300 upvotes, so I'll give them some credit for that. But yeah, I assume nozzle clogged and it managed to push past. No, nope. If that, well, if it broke the filament right at the edge of the Bowden tube and then did this, maybe, but I really doubt that would happen. I think this is accurate. So it broke the filament at the extruder and broken tip just started. Yeah, no, I don't, I think what happened here is that they failed to get it into the Bowden tube itself. Oh man, about, wait, 15 hours into a 32-hour print? Okay, this is a first for me. I've never seen this happen mid-print. Yeah, could be a nozzle clog. I'd like to see the print to see for sure, but probably more likely that the filament snapped, maybe from too much pressure on the extruder. And it definitely snapped. The filament definitely snapped and said, oh, we can't go straight. We're just going to start spinning. Cool failure. Highlight of the week right there. Because I thought I knew this one. Oh, God. Download my file from Thingiverse. It's also spelled wrong, but don't do that unless you like your data getting stolen, which we talked about in a video. We'll card to it. This whole Thingiverse debacle has been a disaster. Please, if you have models on Thingiverse and you have an account, it's time to take them off. It's a joke, clearly, but I'm not joking. Take your models off of Thingiverse. I'm impressed. A+. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for you all today. This has been a really interesting Fail Friday. A lot of it has been all about extrusion. And I think that's a good topic to talk about. If you want me to dive deep into extrusion multipliers, how to set them, do a little short video on that, let me know down in those comments. And hey, while you're down there, don't forget to get subscribed and just lightly tap that like button or hit it like it owes you money. It's up to you. I don't particularly care. I'm not judging. But stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. And remember, failure is always an option. Have a good one. Goodbye, ma'am. Enjoy. Thanks for sponsoring the video. Oh, I finally did it. I did a sponsor segue with my cat. Have I hit peak cat ownership that I had my cat sponsor a video? Because I think that's hilarious. Oh, man. Hey, thanks so much for watching this episode of Print Fail Friday. Don't forget, if you want your fails to be reviewed by an expert, me, make sure to tag us on Instagram or Twitter and use the hashtag PrintFailFriday. That way we can see it and include it in the next episode. And a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so at patreon.com/3D Musketeers, with tiers starting as low as $1 freaking dollar. Come on, guys, it's $1. It helps us make cool shit like this. Support us and support your favorite creators when you can. And don't forget to support your creators by making sure you're subscribed and lightly tapping that like button. Right below me is going to be the entire Print Fail Friday series, and right next to it is going to be the video series on the Ender 3, because a lot of these fails seem to be coming from the Ender family of 3D printers, so we might as well cover it in videos as well. I will see you guys down in those comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on this video. Take care.